Hello, everyone. This is John Lee, your local real estate agent here in the greater Philadelphia area. I have two of my good friends and clients, Anthony Huh and Lydia O. We're gonna just get right to the point here. Guys, tell me a little bit about yourselves and what you guys do.
Um, I guess I'll go first. So I work in education, mostly online education. I'm the AVP of Learning, Design, and Delivery at a college here locally, but we serve clients and students all over the country. So basically, my team and what we do is we work with clients, we work with faculty, we work within the school to essentially take care of all of the online technology and needs that people have to create online courses. So we manage, we maintain all of the integrations with third-party applications and developers, and we essentially make it easy for faculty to create online courses.
For me, I also work from home. I don't know if he mentioned he works from home full time, but I work from home also. And kind of for the same, so sorry.
That is unprofessional. I can't believe you picked up a phone call right now
I'm
in the middle of
trying
this.
to, I'm trying to, I'm trying
Or
to reject
something
it, but I
else.
don't know how to do that. Um, I'm so sorry.
It's
Okay.
okay.
Um, Kind of for the same school as Anthony. So I work for Center for Philanthropy and Social Impact, which is a center that's held within the college that Anthony works for. And it's just me, and I report to my direct boss, and she kind of is the mastermind behind all the programs that we have started and launched. And I just like assist and do kind of program management and consulting for her. But it's in the philanthropy advising space. So
Right.
that's what I do.
No, that's awesome. And for our audiences, I really want to let them know that like typically when I have people on a podcast specifically for real estate related things, I normally will get like, for example, like an investor or someone who might have experience like flipping a house or something like that. I wanted to switch it up and for our audience, let people know that you guys are just a typical family. You own a home, and you decided to do some renovations on your home and make it look really nice. And I will share with the audience the before and after pictures, but I mean, tell me about the journey of buying your property that you live in here now, and what was that process like?
It was long. I don't know. Do you want me to start, babe?
Yeah,
It was
go
it
ahead.
was a long process. I don't know, John, if you remember, but it was kind of in the beginning of the pandemic when we started looking. And I think by the end of it, had ended up putting in maybe 9 total offers to different houses,
Hmm.
and none of which got accepted, obviously, until we finally got our house now. And we looked at so many more houses than that, right? And it was a long process, it was a hard process, especially because of COVID. Um, and the market was just crazy. And I know it got even crazier after we purchased, and then now that it's quieted down a little bit now, I think, but it's still like I hear it's crazy out there, and I'm so thankful and grateful to John to help us find our house when we did, how we did. And yeah. Anything you want to add, babe?
Um, well, I was just going to add that, John. So this is our first time buying a home, right? So we're first time home buyers, and there was a lot that sort of a lot going into that we weren't really prepared for. And I thought John did a really good job of sort of setting expectations. Like one example I can think of is, Lydia had certain ideas for what she wanted in a house, and I had different ideas. And I don't think we ever discussed it, right? So like when we were sending John lists, like listings and homes that we liked, I mean, it was night and day what I wanted versus what she wanted, right? For me, it was just more um, sort of turnkey, ready to move in type of houses, and or like townhomes. For her, it was more like single homes, They could be older because she was able to like look at the pictures and she had like sort of a vision for how she wanted to change things up. For me, I don't have that imagination, so it was just more of like what looks nice, what's newer, so I don't have to think about, fixing things up and what can we move into. But I think John did a good job of like setting those expectations and having that talk with us and saying like, you guys need to get on the same page. Like he didn't mind doing the work and going with us to see the listings. And that was another thing. Because of COVID, they had different rules, right? Like they wouldn't just leave keys behind and say, go look at it, or they can have open houses. We had to actually schedule and be there, right, with the realtor at the same time. So that was a little tough too. But I thought you did a great job of just making sure, like being on call and just being able to meet us wherever and whenever. Like sometimes it was like within 30 minutes, we're like, can you look at this now?
Yeah.
And that's how bad the market. I mean, that's how crazy the market was, right? Like we were putting in offers, sometimes considering like 20,000 over asking, no contingencies, like even stuff like that it was so hard for us to get accepted, like our offer. Like we were being beaten out by people that were paying all cash, no contingency, like nothing, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I still remember that one house. It was a townhome that we were in. And I was like, yo, do you guys really want this house? And you guys are like, yeah. I'm like, we're gonna have to waive all inspections, contingencies, and go over asking. I don't know how much over asking we went, but I was like, all right, turn on all the water, and then we're gonna like check to see the plumbing. And I don't know if you guys remember that,
I
but
I do,
remember.
I remember.
yeah. So I still remember that. But I mean, to be honest, just to assess myself, like thinking back at it, like I was still new. So to kind of like be real, like I think you guys were very gracious because I think there was a time where I did I did forget, I think I forgot to put an offer on one house.
I
Because
will
you
kill you. Are you serious? Yours.
and no, you guys were so gracious because I think if it was anyone else, like I honestly think you guys would have probably just went with someone else, right? But I think you guys really knew, like, we've known each other for so long. And I think that was part of my mistake too. I think there should have been for me at that point, like a little bit more professionalism that I should have had. But again, you guys were so nice and so gracious. But yeah, it was tough during that time. I even for me as an agent, I would lie to you to say that it was easy. Going in through so many houses and getting beat down on so many offers, especially for first time home buyers when we're getting outbid by cash offers, cash deals. So that journey in itself was definitely a crazy, crazy, crazy journey. But I mean, for our listeners, how did we all meet? You guys kind of remember how we all met or our history with each other?
I was thinking about that. I actually don't remember the first time you and I met. And just for those that are listening, my parents have a long sort of history with John's parents. They worked in the same sort of industry. They knew each other. We weren't the same age, and I think that's partly why I can't remember when I first met you, John. I actually remember first meeting your oldest brother, Anderson, right? And then meeting Kevin, and then meeting you. Um, but when I think about like maybe when I first met you, it was probably sometime summer of 2008 or nine when I was back in Philly for grad school. I think we met probably playing basketball for like a church, right? I think that's when I might have first met you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember either. I feel like the Korean community is so small in Philadelphia, and we both kind of grew up here.
Yeah,
So we kind of knew each other, but didn't really get to know each other, I guess, until we were, I guess I would call it young adults,
yeah,
maybe in college, potentially. But I feel like also like Anthony, I probably knew Kevin before I knew you, which is John's older brother, middle brother. And and then I don't know. I really don't remember the first time meeting you, but
yeah,
John, I've
yeah.
always known him as the really sweet, cute younger brother to Kevin.
Yeah, I guess that's what happens when you get overshadowed by two older brothers, right? I think I was always like in the shadows, like because my brother had friends, and I always wanted to be friends with my brother's friends. So that's kind of how that dynamic worked. And then, when I became a young adult, I was like, what the hell? Like, I'm a grown ass man. Like,
Well, I
so
think it was mostly that. I think the
yeah,
reason I don't remember you earlier is because you were probably still high school or maybe just college.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then as you became a professional,
yeah,
that's probably when, I saw more of you and we were in sort of similar events and or places. And
right,
that I think that's when I was like, oh, okay. This is like Andy and Kevin's younger brother, John.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I can remember you, Anthony. You were about 100 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
You
I
about,
remember.
yo, I, it, if I'm sorry if you guys are listening to this on a podcast, you cannot see Anthony, but if you're watching it in video form, just imagine him my size.
Thanks. Thanks for that trip.
Yeah.
Thanks for that trip down memory lane.
No, but I really remember you being extremely athletic. I always looked up to you as like I think like the age bracket, like like me, Topher, Kevin Co, all those guys, right? We all played like sports. Like my group of friends, if you wanted respect from us, you had to be like an athlete, and you had to be good. And when you were on the court, or when you were playing football, like when we were playing like football or whatever, I was like, man, this guy got some athleticism. So you have my respect.
Thanks.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to change gears, for specifically for the property, I know we were going through a lot of properties, and Anthony, I think you mentioned to me that one of the things that was really hard between you and Lydia, and what surprised me, was that you were looking for something that was more turnkey. Lydia was a little bit more open-minded. She was saying, okay, we can get turnkey, but there are certain properties that I think we can get. And I'll show you guys pictures, obviously, but like how did that like come about, and like how did you eventually just make that decision to say, okay, let's go with the house that we got now?
Can I answer?
Yeah.
Well, I'll answer first. Let's put it that way. So, I think a part of that is kind of where our budget was, and going into it, our budget was very different than what it was towards the end of our search. I don't know if you remember that, John.
Yes.
But I think when we first approached you, our budget was like in either under or in the low 300s, right? And
Yeah, it
then
was like 270 to 3 or something.
Yeah.
and
It
then
was,
by
it
the
was
end of
closer
it,
to like low threes, I think. But yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then towards the end of it, we were looking at houses that were like in the 400s, correct?
Yes. You were looking at
Yeah.
homes that were almost even above four, some of them.
Yeah. So in my mind, I don't know if it's because I was looking at more listings or just like exploring more options than Anthony was, but I realized that with our budget in mind, we weren't going to get the kind of house that Anthony wanted, unless it was like a slightly older home that needed a little bit more work. And maybe because I watched too much HGTV or whatever it is, I felt like if we got something a little bit older, I can make it work. I can make changes. It'll probably be more budget friendly for us. And if we did the work ourselves rather than like buy a home that all the work was done to, we would save
Right.
money that way.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off what Lydia was saying. I think for me, I was trying to be like a baller on a budget, right? Like I was trying to get like the best thing that I could get on a low budget, and the more and I think that could have served us well if it was a different market, but because the market was so hot, that was just it was impossible, and it was
Yeah.
like a crazy ask. And I think I started realizing that pretty soon into like putting in offers and getting rejected like with the quickness. I was like, okay, that's probably not going to work. So when we finally decided on our house, or to make an offer on that last house, it was a combination of one, just trusting the vision that Lydia had for the house.
Mhm.
Because again, I'm not able to conceptualize like physical things like that and be able to visualize like, oh, this is what it could look like. So I had to really trust that she knew what she was doing. And then two, honestly, I think I was just worn out. I think I was just worn out by, I mean, we had been looking for what, 6, 7 months for a house.
Right.
And I was just like, we need to just make a choice. And I think lastly, what actually convinced me to kind of just move away from townhomes altogether, right? Because townhomes are more likely like turnkey and move-in ready, but
Mm.
just having two kids, and I knew that the kids would be super loud and they'd be running all over the place, and I didn't know how that would affect our neighbors, like if we lived in a townhome. So
Right.
for me, that was also like a really main, like one of the main selling points of wanting to find like a single home, is that we could have that privacy and we wouldn't have to worry about disturbing anyone else around us.
Right. Now, for couples or people who are searching for homes together, like what would you suggest for them, especially when there are polar opposites as far as opinions go?
I mean, there has to be compromise, right?
Mhm.
I think Lydia was in the beginning willing to compromise a lot of what she wanted to help with what I wanted, but then towards the end, I think I saw like it's not going to work my way.
Right.
I need to compromise more, and I think when that happened, it was like, okay, so if that's the case, then now we have other sort of options that are available to us. Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, I get that question quite often, especially with like house hacking, because obviously I'm house hacking in my own home. So I think the dynamic of the marriage that I have is just like I'm very fortunate, and I think you guys have a pretty good dynamic too. So it's tough for me to also answer that question too, only because like I'm not in your situation, you know what I mean? Like especially with your marriage. So but that's why I always like to ask others. So let's take a look at the actual pictures. So I'm gonna share screen here with you guys. Can you guys see my screen?
Hmm.
Yes.
All right.
Sorry,
This
I know I sent you a lot of photos.
no, it's cool. So these are just some of the examples of the pictures of the home that we have. What people don't know is like this was all right. Lydia, why don't you explain the kitchen here? This was awesome what you guys did.
Okay. So sorry, these are all just screenshots of the photos that were in the listing for our home. So I don't have anything better than this, but this is how it was when we bought it. And basically the kitchen was in the front of the house, and I you can't tell from this photo, but there's like light coming in from the left side because that's where the main entrance or the entrance to the home was, that they were primarily using to go in and out of the home. And so you would literally just walk straight into the kitchen. There wasn't any like island or anything for like prep space. This was it, like the counter in front of you. What you see there, that's it. That was the kitchen. And
Right.
this picture actually doesn't make it look too bad, but the cabinets were in really terrible shape. Like if you
Yeah.
open the cabinet doors, like the bottoms, like the wood was all like deteriorating. I don't know if it was rotting, but it was just old and not kept in great shape. It wasn't very clean. So we had to our original plan was not to invest money into the kitchen when we first bought the house, but we ended up redoing everything on the first floor.
Yep. Yeah, and let's see if I can find the after of the kitchen. This is when you guys started taking the kitchen out, but
Yep.
then you guys completely remodeled the kitchen. So if you
Yeah.
guys,
And so we put the kitchen in the back of the house,
yeah,
where the dining room used to be.
right.
Um,
So the transformation starting here, right?
Yeah, so if this picture you're looking at right now, if you look to the left, you see like in the back left, you see that door. That was that point of entry. And you can see we took out everything to the right of it, like the sink, the counters, the stove, everything. And then where the person taking the photo is standing is where our new kitchen is.
Right. And then the
Yeah.
final pictures of the kitchen,
Yeah.
we can slowly start seeing what's happening with the cabinets here, right?
Yep.
Cabinets are being put in. And then
Yeah, so we have a peninsula and not an island, so we pushed it up against the windows there.
which I thought was great, by the way.
Yeah.
And then the finished product, right?
Yeah. So these are all the old appliances. So the fridge and the stove top and the oven, they're all what was originally at the house.
Yeah,
But yes,
so
the kitchen. Mhm.
so for our listeners, what was the budget that you had in mind and how much did you end up spending for the whole entire project?
So what we had done was we completely redid the first floor. Our basement was it was just the
Is unfinished.
empty, yeah, it was unfinished concrete. And we got that finished. So one side of it is kind of like our kids' playroom, and the other side of it is a small, like I guess, workout area slash there's a laundry room back there and the utility closet back there. There's photos there too if you keep going. And then we got new flooring upstairs, new we had a linen closet put in, and not too many changes in the bathrooms upstairs, but kind of facelift, like new paint. I think we got new vanity and new toilets.
You did the new
And
half bath, right?
yeah, the first floor half bath was
Yep.
gutted and completely redone. Yeah, so
This right here.
that's the first floor half bath. But the picture before that was the basement.
Right.
Um,
This is the basement.
yeah, so this is how it was when we bought it. And then if you keep going, there's more pictures.
Well, I mean, that drywall wasn't even up in the basement, right? It was just, yeah.
Yeah, there
I don't
was
think
you didn't have drywall in the basement.
yeah,
Yeah, it
that's
was
not
just,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
not drywall in the
Yeah,
photos.
yeah.
Um, but oh yeah, so all of that we actually got a really good quote from a family friend of ours, and we ended up paying I think 50,000 for that. And then by the end of it, we had added little odds and ends jobs. So we ended up paying a little bit more than that. But for the majority bulk of the big demo, I mean reno work, it was 50,000. And that's including relocating the kitchen from the front of the house to the back of the house, and flip-flopping the dining area.
Yeah, I really like what you guys do with the stairs too.
Oh yeah. The previous owners had this house originally had the open staircase like that, but the previous owners had put a wall up on the one side where the
Right.
mouse is right now. And we had him open it back up.
Yeah. And your flooring, where'd you get your flooring decor, I think it
Yeah,
was?
floor and decor. The
Okay.
first and second floor is like the laminate, and
Right.
then the basement is vinyl, like the luxury vinyl or whatever you call it. Which is great because we actually had water down there after one of the hurricanes. And so cleanup was so easy and we had like no damage.
Yeah, I mean, everything all in all looks great. I mean, like one of the questions that I wanted to ask you guys is for someone, I mean, do you have any advice for buyers who want to actually go through this process? Like, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, one thing I do want to mention is when we bought our house, we were still living at my parents' house. And so the reno work was
It's a long
actually,
time.
yeah, we bought the house at the end of October. They started like the week after we closed. And so I think they started on like October 27th and we moved in January, like
Oh, shoot.
January 27th or something
Yeah.
like that. So it was like a couple months later, which actually I thought it was going to take longer than that. Our contractor said it was going to take, or we'd be in by Christmas, which she was not correct with. But I mean, I'm not surprised. But no, it took a long time. So we were so fortunate to have some place else to be living and not have to live through all that work. If we had nowhere to live and had to move into a home that needed that much work, I don't know if we would have done that or we would have done that much work. We probably would have not done as many projects all at once and maybe just done little by little. But we were fortunate enough to be able to just get it all done as quickly as possible from the very beginning. So we didn't have to live through any of it. So I guess my one tip would be to consider that when you're thinking about how much work needs to be done. If you have some place to stay, if it's urgent that you move in at a certain point, to make that like deadline clear to whoever you're doing the work with. Anything else you want to add, babe?
Um, Probably not in our case, right? Because we were staying at your parents, but
Yeah.
if it was, the case where a family was moving into the house and they needed reno work done, to Lydia's point, I think at that point you basically have to prioritize what's the most important to you, right? And do those renovations in phases. Otherwise, it's not livable. Like you can't really live there with all of that stuff going on. I would say that, and I guess specifically when working with a contractor and finding one of the most important things to do is to clearly develop like what the scope of work is supposed to be, um, and have those expectations in place. Because I'll tell you, like when we worked with our contractor, he was just like, okay, and he like wrote stuff on like the back of like a cigarette carton box or something. It was like it was just so ghetto.
Yeah.
And that's the way he invoiced us too, right? He was like, here you go, like here's what I wrote. And so
No,
and
we
it worked.
want a more formal
Well, I mean,
invoicing.
it worked out because he was like a family friend too, right? And he like did stuff for us that we didn't ask and all of that stuff. But um, if you're going to work with someone, for the most part, a lot of people don't know the contractors that they're working with. Like having clear scopes, like a clear scope of what the work is supposed to be with like sort of deadlines and all those requirements, I think can really help. And it can give people peace of mind, right? Because one of the things that Lydia was good about was having like a checklist of everything that was supposed to be done. If that's already done on the front end, I think that can really help like homeowners, like as they're kind of verifying and checking to see that everything's done, they have that checklist, they can go through it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I really like learned a lot about you guys is that you guys are very people-friendly people, you know? I don't know if that makes sense, but you guys are very friendly. So, especially with the contractor, Lydia, like one thing I noticed when you were talking to him briefly, I was like, damn, you're a negotiator. Like you're like you were like squeezing things in. Like he was like, oh, like I can do this. And then you're like, oh wait, can you also do that? But don't charge me for it. And I was like, yo, I was like, yo, you're a straight hustler, like you're a negotiator. So that was one thing I really liked. And then also in real estate in general, it's a highly relational business. You know, even for me, like I don't know, like I mean, you guys remember, but I asked you guys for the contractor information because I'm getting asked like, hey, do you guys know any contractors that are reliable? And uh, once you're in the game, you don't
Mm.
have to be a real estate investor. You can be people who are just renovating their home, and it becomes a highly relational type of field. So I'm actually encouraged by both of you guys. So the other thing I actually wanted to go over, which I should have went when I shared the screen, was um, the actual comps. So do you guys remember what you guys paid for on the home?
Yeah, we ended up paying,
It was 365.
no, it was like
It's three.
right around 355, I think.
Yeah, so it was at 360, I believe. 350, 3599, I think, right?
Yeah, and then we got 5K back.
Yep.
Yep.
So I did some extra research and for our listeners, just to give people comparables of what the actual house is worth now. I found like two properties that I thought would be pretty close in, size and style. So as of now, okay, I'm thinking that the house will be closer to 500,000. So in I think this one closed in June. No, this one closed in September. So September obviously was a better market, but this home was actually smaller in size. So your home was about 1,700 square feet. This was about 1,500 square feet. They did have one extra bed, but tell me what you guys think based on pictures. Like, do you think that this is something that would be considered a comparable?
Uh, I mean, one extra bath or one extra bed, right?
Right.
And that looks like it's a split level, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe comparable. I don't know. That
Yeah.
John looks, it looks nice though.
It is.
Um,
It is.
that's the one that had like the whole workout thing in the shed,
Yeah,
right?
it had that workout room in that shed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they converted their garage into this exercise room.
Yeah, look how nice that looks.
Yeah. But it is
I
a
don't know that I
it's a
mean,
smaller home though.
I would love to get that sort of price. Like I would be like, yo, we're moving back to your mom's right now. We're selling this, Sean. We're moving back. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we did certainly see like after we bought the house, the value go up like a lot, and
Yeah,
that was cool. And then now we're at a point where we're not really thinking about selling, but it's cool to see like as the market is cooling down,
right.
actually the neighborhood that we're living in hasn't really gone down as drastically as some other places we've seen.
And guys, that's such an important thing to really note. You guys are living in the property, and I think you had a lot of things that factored in obviously where you wanted to live, with school district, neighborhood, and all of those things. And me being an investor, right? I always look at numbers from cash flow. Like, how much am I going to make, right, from rent relative to what I'm paying for my mortgage? And I didn't really look too much about neighborhoods, and the difference in equity that you're getting here is a huge difference than what I would be getting in some parts of Philadelphia.
Right.
So just for our listeners, like, I just want you guys to keep that in mind, that there's different plays. For example, you'll see huge equity plays in like New York City, right, or Hawaii, right? You might not get a lot in cash flow, but you'll get huge equity in neighborhoods that are technically nicer. So here's another example, 324 Lower Valley Road. This one's actually bigger in size. It does have, I believe, or two full, one or two extra full baths. I think you guys have one full and two halves.
Yep.
Yes.
Right. Okay, cool. So we'll run through these pictures and you guys tell me what you think.
I actually remember both of these houses going on the market just because even after we moved in, I like watched our neighborhood for a while just to kind of see. And one thing to note is our neighborhood, the houses fly like so fast, like within the weekend they list usually. If they don't, it usually means it's one of the older houses that hasn't had any work done to it, and those still go quickly. Um, I will
Those
I
pictures are
I will say
nice.
that, huh?
Sorry, I was saying those pictures are nice.
Yeah, this house, I feel like it's bigger than ours, which is probably why I went for what it did. But I feel like the updates aren't as, I guess, modern.
Yep.
Right.
But at the same time, it's a nice house. I actually sent this listing to one of my friends who was thinking about moving, and I was like, move to our neighborhood. And she was like, um, I think she considered it for a little bit, but I don't know what happened there. But this house, I remember seeing this. I was like, this is a nice house for our neighborhood. And I wasn't surprised that it went for the price it did. I'm actually surprised that it didn't go for more, maybe.
Hey, it
Did
was
it go for?
insane. So it was listed at 519, right?
Yeah.
And then it closed at 562 with a
Oh, so
with a
Yeah.
$2,000 concession. So
wow.
technically it sold $40,000 over asking.
Okay.
Now, guys, consider that this was in June and probably the hottest time
Yeah.
Right.
to sell a house if you're a seller.
Yeah. I remember telling Anthony after I saw that this house sold for that much, I was like, we need to sell our house.
Yeah, like you could have, like, I mean, at that time you could have easily got, like over half a million
I think
for
so, yeah.
your home.
The
I think,
problem is we would have had to buy a house for equally as
yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of the things now, it makes it harder for sellers because, if they sell their house, they have to, they're gonna have to buy one, and with
Mhm.
rates being so high,
Right.
people are being a little bit more reluctant. So uh, yeah, I mean, for our listeners, I wanted to actually show the numbers and give them a little bit more and information, and so that there's more sense to everything. But apart from that, like, how do you think your life has changed, since moving into a home that's now renovated? And for you, Anthony, how and has your opinion changed on everything?
Um, it's I think part of it was you have a sense of like ownership, right? Like we have our own house. This is ours. And in a way, maybe it's just a mental thing, but in a way, it feels like, this belongs to our family. This is what our family's going to live in. We're going to grow in this house. And so that for me provides a sense of, I don't know if it's comfort, but maybe comfort, maybe a sense of relief. Because prior to that, we were living at my in-laws, right, Lydia's parents' house, and they're great, right? They're super like gracious and all of those things. But if you live there long enough, things tend to rub you the wrong way. And so I mean, that was the impetus for us looking, right? At one point, I was just like, yeah, we need to move out, and that's how we started looking. But yeah, I mean, it's been great. I will say, like, it doesn't really change my like view of things in terms of like what my, as I said before, I had to sort of compromise what I wanted. If I had to do it over again, I'd still want like a move-in ready. Like I'd actually start off with saying we're going to go with a higher budget, John. Maybe still look for a single, but I'd want it to be maybe more updated, right? More updated
Mhm.
house. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's been great so far. I will say, like, houses are, you know, all the good things about equity and having security and all of that stuff is great, but they're also like money sucks. Like, as soon as we moved in, you got to pay for this bill, you got to think of that, you got to pay insurance, so there's so many things involved. It's just like, wow, it's actually sometimes it's like cheaper to rent, right?
Mhm.
Depending on the market and depending where you live. But yeah, I mean, right now it's been great. The kids love being in the house. Before, when we used to ask them like, do you want to go to, grandma and grandpa's, they'd be like, yeah. And now they're still excited. But when we ask like, do you like their house better or do you like this house better? And they say they like this house better. And really the main reason is because it's theirs, right? So I think that sense of ownership has been really, um, comforting and valuable for the family.
Um, I guess I forget what the question is, but I just wanted to share a little story about
Yeah, go ahead.
expectations when having your own home. And so after we were looking at homes and we bought our first home, one of the first things Anthony did was buy a riding lawnmower.
Wait, what?
His dream. I don't know if it was his dream, but he was expecting to be, a
King of the
single
Hill?
homeowner with his own lawn, with his own riding mower, being out there on the weekends, mowing the lawn. Let me just tell you, he used that riding lawnmower once. The second time he tried to use it, something like wasn't working, so he gave up. And then we ended up selling it.
You guys don't even
And now
have
we
it?
just hire somebody
Nah,
Oh my
to
God.
do our lawn.
yeah.
Like what kind of
Um,
ride on was it? Like the King of the Hill? Like you actually sit in it and it like
Yeah.
drives?
Yeah,
Damn.
it wasn't like a zero turn, but it was like it was a nice
Yeah.
lawnmower.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so I guess
Short-lived.
all to say you have a lot of people have all these expectations, and I think it's good to set expectations, maybe do a lot of research to make realistic expectations, but at the same time be okay with if you don't reach those expectations or they're different than what you think it'll end up being. And so like even when it comes to buying the home or looking for things in the home, or maybe like for example Anthony what kept in the beginning kept saying, let's just do a townhouse that's already like ready to go into and like done and everything's taken care of. Like you pay the HOA, they do the lawn, they do everything. But then in the end, we got a single home. And I think as long as you're having the expectations or setting your expectations realistically, but okay with them not turning it out the way that you're expecting, then at the end of the day, you'll be happy with whatever is provided. And that's same with the lawn mowing story. He was expecting to be this, master of his lawn homeowner. But I think for us, at least for our family, having somebody like paying somebody to mow our lawn is actually better for our family because one, there's no stress of like figuring out how to use a lawnmower when none of us have ever used it before. Two, it actually takes a lot more time than we thought it would to
Oh
mow
yeah.
a lawn of our size.
Oh yeah.
And three, when it's really hot in the summer, it's like a pain to mow the lawn. And so all of that, like we have young kids. I want him to spend whatever weekends time he has with our children, with our family, because he works during the week, you know. And so just to be okay with whatever happens at the end of the day, and to set your expectations realistically, and it's okay if they don't turn out the way that you want.
No, that's awesome. And to wrap things up, for our listeners, where can they find you guys?
At our home.
Are you talking
We
about
both work
like
from home.
Instagram handle and TikTok and all that?
Yeah, I know you on that TikTok, Anthony.
Nah, that TikTok secret. I can't
All
can't
right.
tell you that one.
Ask me about it.
Yeah, ask John if you want to. If you really want to find us, just ask John.
Yeah,
I know. We
yeah,
both have social media, but neither of us are really that active on it. So there's really no like point to find us. But if you really want to ask John, he'll share our,
of
whatever
course.
our handles
Of
are.
course. Yeah, and appreciate the conversation, guys. This was awesome, and look forward to doing another interview.
No
Thank you,
problem, brother.
John. Thank you for everything.
All right, guys, take care.
Okay, bye.